Dating is hard. Dating is really hard for a lot of people in the modern era. Unless you're really good looking and slash or you have access to the kind of people you want to date on a regular basis, it's hard to go out and just find a partner, especially as you get older because you get more picky. You know who you are, you know what kind of people you enjoy spending time with and you don't enjoy spending time with. And so you're more picky about who you want to be with, period. And then to double down on that, who you'd want as your partner, you're even more picky. Um, and in the modern world, we're all used to getting what we want. If we can afford to get something a bit better, we usually go for it. And I think that bleeds into how a lot of us think about dating, think about partners, trying to find the best partner possible as opposed to a partner. I think a lot of us think that way. I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that that's how a lot of people are. That's how a lot of people operate. That's why people ghost people. It's why people like to see how things go before getting serious. And not everyone thinks this way, but a lot of people do, especially in developed societies, developed secular societies, let's say. Because I think in religious societies, people emphasize marriage and kids and the need to get settled sooner rather than later. And that's the priority. Versus secular societies where looking out for yourself and your own happiness is the priority. And that's how we end up, partly how we end up in this situation. So I'm just going to run down some of my thoughts on this as a man who is dating and who's looking for a long-term relationship. My experiences over the years, this is what I've learned. So number one, if you're an older man trying to date a younger woman, in the UK, let's say, I find that white English women are generally much more age sensitive than women from, say, Europe, Eastern Europe, not just Eastern Europe, Europe, or other kind of ethnic minority backgrounds. White English women are much more age sensitive. I think even more so than Irish women, for example. I don't know why that is. I think it's just a cultural thing. But even in my mid to late 30s, I remember chatting to this girl. I actually went on a date with this girl who was in her mid 20s. And when she found out how old I was, she just immediately just cut the whole thing. And I've had that experience a few times with, again, white English women specifically. So that's something I find to be true. Interestingly, there are a lot of women who look to date older men because they want men who are more established in life and who have more financial abundance, who know what they're doing, and who can kind of lead them. So if you are an older guy, if you're in your late 30s or in your early 40s like me, actually it's okay. You just have to meet the right kind of women, to be honest. It's not a big deal. And I think this sort of ties in with general accepted wisdom of how men tend to mature into more fineness as they get older, up to a certain point, of course. Whereas for women, their sort of sexual market value tends to be highest in their mid to late 20s to early 30s, generally speaking. So I think that plays well, at least for a guy like me. I think for women in their late 30s, I think it's really hard. I've got female friends who are in that category. I've got female friends who are older than me in their mid to late 40s. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough for them because they are usually established in life. They're very picky about the kind of guy they want to meet. But at the same time, they're just not seen to be as attractive as younger women. I don't just mean in terms of looks, in terms of what they can offer, what they bring to the table. It's generally true. It's generally true. And even I myself, if I'm going to date someone who's in her mid to late 30s, I'm going to be more picky about her, I think, than if she was younger. But what's interesting about that is even given that, there are women I've met who are in their late 30s who are quite arrogant and they are, it's so surprisingly so. They think they can just be really demanding of what a man brings to the table, which it's amusing because a lot of the times those women, they're not the most attractive women. Because I think if a woman's really attractive, if she's physically very attractive, then she just has a lot more leeway and she can attract younger men, any kind of man really. Because a woman's power and leverage really comes from her attractiveness. It really does come from that. So if you're a woman and you're getting into your mid to late 30s, you want to maximize your chances, or your 40s, whatever it is. If you want to maximize your chances, look hot. just focus on looking hot. If you're a man, I think, yeah, be good looking, but just be successful and be confident. I think confidence is really the key for men, because you don't need to be amazingly good looking. You don't need to be super wealthy, but you do need the confidence to be able to go out there and meet women, right? And that's kind of what I'm working on. I'm confident, but I could be a lot more confident and a lot better. And I think for men, that's really what you need. Get your life in order, and then just really get that, because that's what's going to attract women. And a woman who wants to date an older man is going to want to see an older man who is confident. I think that's true. Also, dating apps suck. They really suck. I mean, we know now that most dating apps are mostly full of men. And I think on a dating app, because it's almost like a shopping mall, people are more picky about who they swipe right on, especially women. I mean, women are picky anyway. Most women don't fancy most men. The opposite isn't true. Most men will fancy most women on a dating app. I think it's much easier for a woman to put up photos in a way that make her look really attractive to the mass population of both men and women. I think it's much easier for women to do that than it is for men. I think this is all why only the top few percentage points of men on a dating app really get matches in the first place. And it's basically a polygamous system. They're just cleaning up. So dating apps, it's funny how people say a lot of people meet their spouses through dating apps. It makes me wonder, are a lot of people matching and then ending up with people who wouldn't be their first choice in a real life scenario? I do wonder that sometimes. So yeah, they suck. Dating events can be a bit better, but it's kind of potluck who shows up. I mean, usually the people who are very dateable and the people who are very attractive aren't really going to show up to dating events, because they probably already got someone. If it's a woman, she's probably got 10 guys who are messaging her at that point, any point in time. So when you go to a dating event, you never know. You could meet someone great. You might not. It's really potluck. Overall, I've been to a number of those in my life. Mostly, it wasn't full of people that I found attractive. Mostly. Sometimes it was, and I'd definitely try in those cases. It's an easy thing to do in the sense that you do get to go and meet a lot of people in a very short space of time. So I find myself doing that every now and then. That's the truth. And again, you never know. It's always a chance. I tried a dating agency. So they were very expensive, and they charge both men and women. They're very established. They've been around for decades. You get 5 dates, which, we're looking back now, is a very small number of dates. The whole idea is they curate the dates for you, which they did. And I think for me, at least 3 of those dates weren't really my type at all, which just leaves 2. And one of them, it started okay, but then it fizzled out. And the other, she didn't want to proceed after a couple of dates. She couldn't say why. She just felt something was off. To be honest, I felt something was a bit off as well. So yeah, again, it felt like potluck. And the one takeaway from that experience of a matchmaking agency is that it's good if you don't have time to go out and date. You're really pressed for time, or you're really terrible at dating, because they help you with that. But if you're like me, you just want to meet quality people, it's probably no better than using Hinge. In all honesty, you're better off just using a dating app. And I say that as someone who barely gets anything quality on a dating app. Even then, it was better than, or as good as, what I was getting through the matchmaking agency. So I don't really understand the value of that to a person like me, but I do understand for some people that's pretty much the only way they'd be able to meet someone. Now, there are different types of matchmaking agencies. Some of them purport to put you in touch with, models and more elite people or whatnot. I haven't tried those. They're all very expensive. And I thought, okay, I've tried this once, spent a lot of money on this, didn't go anywhere. I don't want to spend the same money again. I'm open to trying these sorts of things, because I think each sort of arrangement can be a bit different. But my one experience there, I look back and I think I probably could have saved my money. Yeah, I did meet some interesting people, but I could have saved my money and better spent it somewhere else. I think if you're serious about dating, because I said it's hard these days, right? But if you're serious about meeting someone for whatever reason, whether it's for casual sex or long-term relationship, you should do everything possible. One thing I've learned over the years is that you blink your eye and the years go by. I mean, the best example of this is COVID. I think that's a good 2 to 3 years that most people just lost from their lives. As in, yeah, we were alive and we got through it, but most of us didn't really do much that year. And I mean globally, right? So that's a good recent example of how time just flies by. But time flies by even when you're doing stuff. And that's just the nature of life. So I just know so many people who are single, they want to find a partner, but they don't actively work on it as hard as they should. And I try my best not to be like that. I try to actively work on it because it's something that I think is really important and I want in my life. And if I don't work on it, then it's not going to automatically happen. One of my earlier videos, I talked about there being no such thing as karma or destiny. I mean, I'm open-minded to the possibility that you can attract things into your life at the right time, but no one can tell me how that systematically can be made to work. And so as long as that's the case, I have to assume it's not true, or I have to behave in a way where I don't rely on chance. I have to make things happen. And so that means you have to get out there and make things happen. And a lot of people don't because it's hard. It's hard work, and there's the fear of rejection and the fear of failure just looming all the time. I know this because I have the same fears. I have the same fears. But what drives me still to go ahead is just the desire to get what I want and almost feeling like it's a necessity. If I don't put this effort in, how is this going to happen?